Hey everyone, this is Bailey O'Brien. I am a stage 4 melanoma survivor, and I am joined today by my new friends Theo and Kim Hansen. Kim is a breast cancer survivor. She was diagnosed in 2014 with metastatic breast cancer, and she and Theo have an amazing healing story that I can't wait for them to share with you. And they're doing a lot of cool and fun things now that I don't know totally about, but I'll let them explain to both of us what they're doing now and how you guys can get involved. So, Kim and Theo, the power couple, could you tell us how everything started?
Yeah, I'll start with that. In March of 2014, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Going back a little bit, starting in about January, we had a home both here in Chicago. We were flipping houses. We were in the real estate business, and so we were fast paced and moving. And part of the time, Theo was well, pretty much most of the time, Theo was in Chicago of all of 2013. And so I would travel back and forth between there and here. And in January, I found a lump in my breast, and he came home in January in San Diego. And it was a busy time. We had our youngest son was turning 18, our middle son was getting married, and our first grandchild was about to be born. And then I find this lump. And so I go to the doctor. She refers me on to get what did I get? I think an ultrasound. And then I had a biopsy. And then the doctor called and said, you have breast cancer. And I always say it was so surreal. It was like I was out of my body looking down at somebody else being diagnosed. I just never thought I would ever hear those words, you have cancer. And breast cancer didn't run in my family. I would say I was patient zero. And then I just was on a fast track. The next thing I know, I get a call from my nurse navigator telling me that I was going to be seeing an oncosurgeon, an oncologist, that they would probably, if I needed chemo, this is what they were going to do. And again, it just was so surreal. So next thing I know, I'm talking to Theo about it, and he's with me. We go see the oncosurgeon, and she starts telling me two options that I have to remove my breast, and that I was going to have chemo and radiation. And I just, in my gut, didn't feel that that's the path I wanted to take. I didn't know what I wanted to take, but I knew that wasn't it. It was perfect brand new grandbaby that I wanted to bond with, and I didn't want her watching me struggle with sickness and possibly be taken from her. And so I even was fearful to bond with her. And we just began doing a lot of research, and we ended up on a food protocol, juicing protocol, and that was gifted by a friend. And I'm going to let Theo kind of jump in when he wants, because he has a perspective on it, and he can kind of fill in the gaps, because I was going so fast through the process that I think anybody who has cancer, as you probably know, you kind of just remember bits and pieces of it, because you're just moving so fast through the process, and it's kind of like a dream. There's parts that stick so much out in my mind, but there are also parts that I think that we just kind of shove back and don't want to talk about or don't remember. I do remember sitting with the oncosurgeon, and it was a freezing cold room, and she just didn't seem. She walked in, she looked at my chart, and said, "Hi, Kimberly, you have breast cancer. I'm so sorry." And then, just very, I didn't feel like I had a team. They said, you have a cancer team, and that's not how I felt. I felt that we were alone on an island. Do you want to say anything about it?
Well, could you tell us how you found out how extensive the cancer was?
Yeah. Want to jump in?
Yeah, you tell it well, but for us, as the observer, I got to sort of sit and watch from the sidelines. So every conversation was crystal clear. It wasn't like I didn't have that sort of the sound of the teacher on the TV show Peanuts. Remember, it was always the tears of wah wah wah. And I think that's you look at Kim, that's all she could. We come back from every meeting. So it started out with a 1.6 centimeter tumor in the right breast, and it was pathology. The first doctor wasn't very good at communicating details and information. She just said that you have cancer. But as it turns out, it was estrogen and progesterone receptor positive and HER2 protein negative. but it was poorly differentiated, so, or moderately at the time. So it had the potential to be a little bit more dangerous than considered like a super slow growing situation. So we actually asked if we could go get our affairs in order and take a vacation. And the doctor was like, "Oh yeah, there's no difference in outcome between 30 days or 36 months to start a treatment," which, as it turns out, is not actually true at all. But that's what her position was, because she was speaking to us from a place of ductal carcinoma in situ, but it wasn't in location where Kim had invasive ductal carcinoma and DCIS. So she was only speaking to half of the conversation. And so, that's, I think, once you start realizing, so we come back, we get a new doctor, that's when the news gets like better and worse at the same time. So an MRI would reveal that our 30 days of being on a non-toxic natural protocol had benefited Kim with a 50% reduction in the tumor in 30 days on MRI. But
oh my gosh.
that was the first gadolinium contrast MRI, which also showed that Kim had evidence of metastatic cancer in a lower quadrant of the same breast and in the axillary. So they scheduled stuff. So it felt really weird. I was like, maybe we're doing something wrong, but yes, something has to be right. I mean, tumors don't just regress. But the minute that we started trying to connect the conversation to this is what's changed in our life, this is what we're doing, what's its role, it has no role, it's inappropriate, it'll interfere with the treatment, stop immediately. And it was like,
that's what your doctor said after the MRI showed a 50% shrinkage.
Yeah, and she was hostile about it. So
and you weren't doing anything else, correct?
No, I mean, we did all the basics, like start drinking real water, not tap water, and start getting rid of all the poisons and chemicals and disruptors that are in your house and your environment. There were things like, for Kim and I, she said to me early on in the journey, she said, I remember us sitting there, she said, "I feel like you're not really a part of this. Like, I feel like you're kind of checked out." And so I pouted, and that's what little boys do, is we pout. We don't really actually own our crap. And so I pouted and I stomped off and I stayed up all night and I read everything there was to read about her particular cancer, so that by morning, I was armed and I was participating and I was going to prove her wrong. And it was really one of the best things that happened. But when you fast forward that into this conversation with the second oncologist and you ask, what were we doing? Well, I stopped working. I only started doing stuff with Kim. We started talking about all parts of the journey, the risks. We started talking about what she wanted. We started talking about what I wanted, maybe together, how we could do it. So there's like a sense of love and support. I know has a huge role in disease management. And then we started June 25th. We were introduced to a juicing protocol that a gentleman with esophageal cancer had utilized 13 years prior with stage 4. And we thought, well, either this guy's a complete and total nut job and a liar, or he's trying to convince us to get healthy. So we opted for that he's trying to convince us to get healthy. And June 26th, we started it. And so as we came in a month later to that MRI scan result, or MRI scan and the results a week later, that's kind of when you asked, what were we doing? It was like, we were definitely crushing the juicing protocol. We never missed a single, there was never like a breakdown. There was never like an oops. I did it with him. And I think between that and love and support and clearing out the household, those are the only things that we were doing in that minute.
Wow. So you waited a few months before starting the juicing and raw diet?
Yeah, we went on that vacation. We sailed. Right. I sailed. Yeah, every good husband, please don't do what I did. I hopped a flight to the Canary Islands and I jumped a boat that my buddy had made in France, and he wanted to get it to San Diego, so I agreed to help him right before her diagnosis. I agreed to help. So then obviously we needed to not do that, and he was in a crisis because he needed crew, couldn't get the boat moved. So I don't know what I was thinking, but I jumped a flight to the Canary Islands. We thought it was going to be like 9 days, and 21 days later we made land in St. Lucia and flew Kim and his wife in, kicked off the rest of the crew, and we sailed for like an amazing 12 days of island sailing down to Grenada, and then we came home at the end of May. So June 1, we started rebuilding our team, and then June 25th, we were introduced to a protocol. The 26th, we started it. A month later, we got our first MRI with the new team. That's when it was like good news, bad news.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Kim.
I was just going to say, so the bad news ended up not being bad news. That it was just some scar tissue and some other stuff that they saw that wasn't metastatic, or the juicing protocol had kicked it along with the tumor.
Yeah, just to be precise, so 30 more days before we went back in for that whole crazy series of biopsies. So at that point, we've been on protocol for 60 days. And it's like almost crazy that it's actually to the day. So they go in for the biopsy in the areas that were lit up in contrast, and they're just plunging around, and it's the craziest experience you can possibly have because it's Kim has implants, and under an MRI guided biopsy, which like there's no way you don't know where you're headed.
Yeah.
They have to go through that implant and come out the nipple twice, which is not even supposed to exit the other side. So she's bleeding, all this stuff's happening, and the primary tumor is 44% smaller than it was the 30 days prior.
Yeah, so this is on the second MRI, so it's continuing to shrink.
Oh my gosh.
But it actually was a blessing because I was supposed to go in and have my surgery, have a lumpectomy on the primary tumor. And then through the biopsy or the MRI that this new doctor had asked for, they thought that I had metastatic breast cancer. So they scheduled it for 30 more days or 40 days out. So we continued to juice and just live our life thinking, well, this might not be good. And so that's when they went in for the guided needle biopsy and ruptured the implant. And so then everything got put on hold, and we just continued to go through the process of juicing and living a clean life, and bonding, and not even realizing all along we just thought that we had this amazing results from a food protocol, but there were so many other things in there in the process.
And at the same time, so you would think that oncology is getting excited because, wow, great news. We saw mets, but we can't find them now. Sorry about all the damage. But, good news, your tumor is smaller again. And instead it was a hostile conversation when I wanted to ask, like, what would be the contributing factors? So we were told spontaneous regression occurs. So if you have mets, it's 1 in 100,000 cases is the best that they think that happens. Is that, I don't know, so for whatever reason, the body turns on and does its job. That doesn't even make sense though to us. It was like nothing about the idea that it was spontaneous. And then that's when the doctor pulled me aside away from Kim. Like we were in the same room, but pulled me aside and kind of got close to me and said, "You're going to kill your wife with this baking soda." And I was like, "What is baking soda?" Was this a protocol I'm supposed to know about? I thought that was all like weird stuff. So that made her more mad when I asked her if she could point me to the baking soda protocol, so incorporate that.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. So you, I read on your website that you asked the doctor hard questions. What were some of those questions?
Yeah, I think along the way, we didn't know a lot to ask a lot. So in the beginning, we were good followers, except for that pouting event that happened early, where I pouted and stayed up all night and studied. Was I chased the rabbit hole of tamoxifen as a hormone suppressant, and discovered that there was significant evidence. It wasn't anecdotal; it was actually under a study that in a good-sized study group that 30% of women who are on a 5-year regimen, starting at Kim's age, 30% of them would develop some form of reproductive cancer, and as a side effect. And then of those, 70% would die from that cancer, not from the initial cancer. So that was our first time that we had a hard question to ask the doctor, because that first oncologist, when she came in the room and she was cold, the room was cold, and she said, "I don't have all of your results back, but I want to talk to you about a 5-year regimen of tamoxifen." And she started quoting this incredibly positive statistics of oh my gosh, the mortality rate is 1 to 3% when we combine these three together, these treatments. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Because I had just read all the studies, and that was when, as we dug in and started asking questions, that was the first time we began to understand that maybe asking questions was pretty important. But we still didn't know what questions to ask, other than why won't you look at the protocol we're doing before you tell us we shouldn't do it? Because they did say, when did salad become so dangerous to chemotherapy? I just wondered, when did salad interfere? When did healthy eating And if you won't even look at it, then how can you tell me it's bad?
And they wanted to continue to say that healthy eating didn't matter.
Yeah.
That it just didn't matter in cancer.
Had no role.
No wrong.
And this was the second oncologist was highly regarded. We built our own war chest, so we were self-paying conventional system. Imagine who does that, right? So we had done well, and we decided that we would just steer all that into being able to pick the best conventional. So our mind was all wrapped around what I would now call commercial medicine. It's popular, so I don't know if it's conventional, because I think conventional is to do conventional things like eat right, manage your stress, do all the things that they say prevent cancer or reduce or minimize the risk. Those would be like conventional things in my mind, but we keep calling commercial medicine conventional for some reason, but we see it as commercial now. But as far as the questions go, I think, we asked what were survival rates, what were treatment options. I think another magical one was our second oncologist was really pressing for radiation. And I asked her, I said, why would you not save it? Because you can only radiate the breast one time.
Yeah, she didn't bring that up.
No.
No, anybody I've talked to, most people don't realize that you get that one time shot of the radiation in the breast. And so we said, why wouldn't we say that for if I have a worse diagnosis or a recurrence? And she said, well, you could. And same with the tamoxifen. When she was selling this drug, she wasn't talking about all these horrible side effects that him and I had just read up on before we went in to see her the day before. And so most people don't ask. And gadolinium, with the gadolinium contrast, I went in to get my MRI, and he wasn't with me at that time, and the first time. And they said, okay, so you're going to have this IV, you're going to have gadolinium. I said, wait, what's gadolinium? And she goes, well, it's just this thing that it's got sugar in it. It makes anything that's metastatic or
totally
cancer.
Safe.
It's totally safe. It lights up. I said, do you have any literature on it? And they're like, well, your appointment's starting, so we got to hurry. But let me see. Looking through drawers, couldn't find it. A couple of them got around the computer, and they pulled something off like Wikipedia and or WebMD and handed it to me, and I started reading it. And I said, why don't you guys have this? Why don't you hand this to anybody? And they said, nobody's ever asked.
Oh my gosh.
And so, and so I'm there, and I'm going ahead, and I read through it and went, well, this isn't great because it can pass through the brain-blood barrier, or, I knew that, but I just decided I have to have this done. I'm going to go ahead, but next time I won't. And they won't do it. Usually with breast cancer, they said it won't even show up, so we have to use it. So I that's one of the things we push for is better testing. Why are we going and poisoning our bodies? We're already so compromised. So,
Wow. So what have you followed up with other kinds of testing since then?
Yeah, so we've been relying on a variety of things. So we look at all kinds of things, the whole body, and then circulating tumor cells. So Kim's cancer type, there are tests that are available. Some people's cancers, you can't measure circulating tumor cells, or at least we don't have the labs stateside. And then, there's a controversial platform, the RGCC, that it takes a lot of heat. I'm not really sure. We don't use the chemosensitivity panel. We haven't utilized that in the 3 years that we've worked with other people. But we have had the benefit of being able to monitor about a dozen people on that platform and seeing that their disease progression or regression does match the results of the RGCC OncoTrail. But as far as the OncoTrail overall test, I'm not here to promote it, because I'm just not really sure. There's a bunch of us. We work with a lot of medical doctors, and we're still questioning some of the claims that they have. But as far as a circulating tumor cell test, that's a great one. But looking at like CRP and looking for inflammation, looking at hormone balances, just looking at the whole body to understand, is there disruption or dysfunction? Is there any kind of dysbiosis? And so blood, urine, and stool, and then just look to see how the body's, if we have any kind of nutrient deficiency, if it's spilling, if you have something happening in your system where you're spilling out into your waste system, if you're just spilling you have some of your vitamins or minerals, and then looking for fungal and bacterial overgrowth, stuff like that. So it's really more of a whole body. We're no longer reductionists. Where like cancer in a particular location is not a defect of that part of your body. It's the body system isn't doing something that's supposed to be doing. So when you ask for testing, it's like we're really diving into that whole body approach.
Yeah. So when we help people, usually they've already had, when they come to us, if they've had breast cancer or some other cancer, they've already had the hardcore testing done, stuff that's already they've already used some kind of bad or toxic, radiation or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we get them on the way, we usually encourage them to do these other non-toxic, simple tests that actually is the whole body. If somebody does come to me and said, hey, I found a lump, what should I do? I usually encourage them not to do a mammogram. They already know the lump's there, or they've had a mammogram, and then I say do an ultrasound, and then, ultimately, we would love to get them on a protocol for 30 days before they do anything. They usually, if we can catch them early enough, we have a lot of success with them doing nothing and just watching the tumor continue to shrink to where it's just scar tissue. So,
do you recommend thermography?
It's a tough one. We didn't have a great experience with thermography. I know a lot of people do. My tumor didn't show up.
Yeah. So thermography.
Did you do only one thermogram or two or more?
It was a comprehensive with a single provider that's pretty educated and pretty fanatical about it. And I think that the takeaway that I love if anybody watching is it's a powerful tool in a tool chest, but it's not a standalone system.
Right.
And the reason is that it's relying on heat signature. So if you have a tumor that is receptor positive and it's using some of that as a driver, but it isn't calling for angiogenesis, it isn't calling for vascular support, then there's not going to be heat. There's not, in other words, there's always going to be heat signature. It's like, okay, well then come look at our scans and tell us how the operator did them wrong, or tell us how we didn't do the black and white. When we did the black and white, tell me how, walk me through it again, because what we did learn was a phenomenal amount about Kim and where she did have inflammation. So it wasn't that it wasn't measuring her, but for sure, Kim was showing poor thyroid, she was showing poor circulation, all these things were really, it was one of the first tools that was really empowering us, but it also, we didn't tell the operator going in that Kim had breast cancer. We already had the MRI, the ultrasound. We already knew that was there. We were just trying to contemplate, which direction we're going. And unfortunately, that temporarily steered us away from looking at non-conventional methodology, because we were like, everybody swears it's there, but yet these conventional systems are telling us that there's a 1.6 centimeter tumor and it's not showing up at all. There's zero signature. So it doesn't mean that it's bad all the time. It just, for us, we do try to tell people, don't go for one thing.
Right.
It's a whole.
It's a whole thing.
But you did ultrasound?
Yeah. Originally, I did the ultrasound, and I think I've done, I did another one in the process, because we started our protocol in June, and I ended up, because I had damaged implants and that needed to come out, I went ahead and opted for the lumpectomy, and that was in September. Late September. So through the process, there were all kinds of testing, because my case switched hands. I had a different oncology team built up, and so they were calling for new scans. So yes, ultrasound is one of the things that I had done.
Okay. And it you did the ultrasound after the lumpectomy?
No.
Or before?
No, before. Okay. All we've done for testing since then is the RGCC test,
the circulating
tumor cell.
Okay.
And that's I still encourage people to do it. I think it's a good one. And the book that I would plug is Jenny, how do you say it? Herbachek, and it's Cancer Free. Are you sure?
Okay.
And she talks about all kinds of testing in there, not just
great.
RGCC, but she talks about just testing for certain cancers and the different kind of testing. She talks about thermography. There's just less toxic testing that you can do.
Great. So when did you officially become cancer-free?
The end of September, 1st of October of 2014. So however many months.
3 years ago.
Yeah, it's three and a half years ago.
No, 3 years ago. It's 3 years ago now. We just celebrated a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that's right. It's in October. We celebrated 3 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
yeah,
wonderful.
Thank you. And when I got, I had the lumpectomy, and then I went in, and my oncologist 3 days later was like, "This is amazing news. We've got clear margins, nothing in your lymph nodes, everything's, you're cancer free." And then she hands me a piece of paper and says, "Please go see an oncologist about radiation and chemo."
Did you say anything at that point, or?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, because she was, I think she was doing it because she believed it was right for us, but
Yeah.
also because, it got a little hostile right at the end. What happened with the injuries was the only option that Kim had was a bilateral mastectomy because she had to get the implants out, but nobody would actually be willing to do it. And so, basically, by now, Kim's like Superwoman, in that she's the most empowered person on the planet. And she's like, I'm going to find somebody. So she literally starts harassing plastic surgeons, asking, would you do this? And if they said no, she's like, fine. Who do you know who? And she just kept like going through the book until she found. I remember we met the first one. We liked him a lot, but she was like, "But I'm gonna still keep going." And it was like, so then she found out I like this one better. And we went and talked to him, and that particular doctor here in San Diego, in a really nice medical center, was like, "I love your story. I love who you guys are. I love everything about what you're doing, and I think it's exactly what people should do. So I'll tell you what, I'm willing to get in there and take this risk on and going after these implants and getting them out. But I can't, just because of the way the system works, you have to have a clearance from a doctor. So either, take the radiation, which that's your choice, but I don't know, or see if you can get that lumpectomy to happen. And then if you don't do radiation, come, as soon as that's sealed up, come see me and we'll get in there. And we just felt really at peace. And then we went back to the doctor and Kim demanded. She said, I want you to do this. And she said, I'm not going to do it. She said, please, will you just do a lumpectomy? Can we still be friends? And she goes, okay.
Yeah, she really did not want to just do a lumpectomy and then sew me back up with ruptured implants that happened under her care. But I said, I do have a plastic surgeon who wrote a letter that said that he'll take on the risk. If you'll take on the risk of just doing a lumpectomy, you do your job, he'll do his. And so, because all along they were pushing just to take the implants, do the lumpectomy, and have me go through a full mastectomy. And I just was like, I'm not doing that. I fought to keep my breasts. I want to keep my breasts. And so I have a doctor who's willing to clean up the mess after you're done. And I happened to be her last patient. And so she was finally so tired of us as a couple, I think, that we were the squeaky wheels. She finally just said, look, you're my last patient. I'll go ahead and just do a lumpectomy. And you have to sign this waiver saying you won't come back on me if you have, if I didn't get all the cancer or you have a recurrence or something goes wrong with you keeping, getting the implants out, not doing a mastectomy. So we said, fine, we'll do that. And so she did. She did the lumpectomy, and then I had this great relationship with this plastic surgeon and cleaned everything out. So
That's great. So I'm sure you grew in your confidence as an empowered patient over time. That was something that definitely happened for me too. Like I used to be the totally obedient patient, didn't ask any questions, and I would get mad because my grandma was a nurse for 45 years or so, and sometimes she would be with me at my appointments and she'd start asking questions or ask a question that I had asked my grandma or brought up with her, and I'd get mad and be like, why are you doing that? But then eventually, as time progressed, I asked more questions, and like you finally stood up and was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Like I went to the Cancer Treatment Center of America in Tulsa, and the first doctor or oncologist we saw, I said, so you recommend chemosurgery and radiation, and that'll get me, what, 2 years? And she said, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to do that because, like, I want to live a full life. I don't want just 2 years, if that. And by the way, like, my other oncologist didn't even think I had a year. So.
Wow. Yeah, I know that. Well, that's what I say. I wanted to thrive, not just survive.
Yeah.
And we don't say you're a cancer survivor with anybody we work with. We always say you're a cancer thriver. If you want to call it, and it's not your cancer, it's a cancer. That yes, it's in your body, and your body produced it, but it doesn't identify you. And it's the truth. You want to be empowered. I was the same way. Lots of medical nurses and everything in my family, and we didn't have anybody. It was him and I alone. And our kids were happy. Our 3 boys are like, yeah, do it, Mom. We trust you. Even though it was a scary time, most people would cave and say, no, go for the chemo, go for the radiation, do everything you can. But they saw us starting to glow and starting to become healthy. He's 100, 200. What were you?
Oh, yeah. So I was 267 pounds on June 25th. I was, obese, and I had already had a heart attack. So I did the protocol with Kim in support. And I think in the back of my mind, I was like, I'll probably lose a few pounds too. So I went on to lose 110 pounds.
That's incredible.
So we began to just get healthy, even though mine was internal and it was happening. He's physically losing pounds and looking healthy, and we're going to the gym, and where other people who are doing traditional treatment are going to the hospital from infections and side effects. We're going to the gym and we're cooking up beautiful, raw salads and our juicy protocol and having people over. So I think that even looking back, people are like, yeah, they probably did the right thing, but they don't want to admit it because, you're scared and you want to listen to that person in the white coat. So many times when Theo and I talk with somebody, we say, when we first meet them and they're questioning, we'll say, this is what we did, this is, what worked for us, and if you want to do that, and they'll be like, well, I don't know. So we always say that we're going to get the placebo coat, put on a white coat, come back and get the same price, and they'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm supposed to do that.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think, like in your journey too, I know from your story that like you had an amazing response within like the first 3 weeks. It's physically measurable, and so for Kim and I, the first 2 weeks we said like, wow, are you feeling like I'm feeling? And we were just kind of starting to compare notes, and like things were vibrant. It was like the world became bright. Like physically, things became brighter and clearer and sharper, and then it just kept going. And I think there was also this really beautiful experience where everybody wants to be loved and feel like they're wanting to be a part of something. And so for Kim and I, when you start taking away all the pain and stress of life, and take away all the pain of body discomfort, you take away the fear of death because you start feeling connected, our days started becoming like amazing. Early on, we were just like, I don't know where this is going, but let's just do this, because this is kind of amazing. And then here we are 3 years later, and it's never stopped. There's like zero side effects, as it turns out, to choosing an alternative therapy like eating right, good, clean water, good friends, fun time, helping others. As it turns out, it's like a recipe that is like it has an outstanding result percentage-wise, but it has zero side effects. And then show me one single prescription treatment that doesn't have significant side effects and a low success rate. I mean, that's our kind of comparison in the world. And we're not anti anything. I think there's a few people that we know in common that we've been working with recently that have to make a decision sometimes in life to embrace conventional simultaneously because of their end stage or late stage, because of a variety of things. And we're so not anti anything. We're just pro outcome. And so when we take that container off, we honor everyone that's on both sides of the argument. For those that want to go completely 100% all natural, we're just like, yeah, let's see where that goes. And then for those who want to do a hybrid, or those, we got a message from June the other day. June was one of the first people that came to us and said, because she knew Kim's mom, and said, hey, I need to talk to you. Like, we're like, okay, what can we do? And she said, I had a really difficult cancer. It was colon related, but she said I had this treatments, and it didn't go well. 7 weeks of radiation. I was burned, and it was very discomforting. But now I have metastatic bone cancer, and I don't have anything for me. Do you think what you guys did would work? And so she just sent me a message. In fact, I'm gonna probably post it. And so it's just great. She's two plus years later, almost 3 years, and she's alive and well. And her disease continues to regress. She has zero, there's no impact in her life, and she just laughs at her oncologist and goes and humors her oncologist. So it was every 6 months. Now she goes once a year. And the oncologist says, keep doing whatever you're doing. It's working. And she takes there's no side effects. She lives in Hawaii. She's abundant. She's got she's a grandparent now, and she just lives, kayaking and eating right and having fun. And she'll hit Kim up for dessert recipes, because Kim's pretty good at finding some pretty delicious, health-based ideas for after dinner. And so that's, it's one of those sort of stories where you go, wow, yeah. But, I think it's important, too, is that Kim and I don't feel like we want to tell people that there's like an evil empire in the oncology system. There's just there's a breakdown. There's a tragedy. There's a lot of confidence in poor performing drugs and treatments that aren't always reversible, and that they take a toll and they snatch lives. They do all this crazy stuff. It's like, where does this all fit? Well, I think the proposition we have is, ask your oncologist, can you take a vacation for the next 45 or 60 days? Can you get your affairs in order before you start treatment? Great. The vacation is take care of yourself. Here's the roadmap. Do all these things and get rescanned, and then ask yourself, what are my results and what pathway I want to take? Does that seem like something you'd be willing to do? And that seems to relax everyone's system and give them the chance. And the people that have taken that invitation up, it's pretty amazing to go to an event like TTAC and then have them walk up and be like big hugs, and then I don't think you got to meet. There was a couple that was kind of hanging around with us, that we've developed this amazing friendship. But in April, she had the same cancer as Kim, and now she's cancer free. And
oh my gosh,
it's just, and she hung out with us in Costa Rica for an event we did, and we got to know her a little bit, but we hadn't talked in months. And she sent me her circulating tumor cell results and asked if I could help interpret them. And I was like, what do you want to know? And she was like, I don't understand. Like, what is it? She's like, well, how's my cancer? And I was like, well, according to your circulating tumor cell count, you're not at risk of anything, like cancer-wise. Like, what's going on? And she tells us the whole story. And I'm like, you did what? Like, I didn't even know that she had gone on that journey. And so next year, she'll tell her story. But this year, she just wanted to let the dust settle and get some time under her belt before she got to share it with everybody.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Do you feel that there are any cases where a person should start out with more aggressive treatment or a more aggressive approach than just diet and lifestyle?
What do you mean by aggressive? Like, give me a little bit of a container around that. Like, what do you mean? Like, you like running into some surgery and some radiation chemotherapy, or do you mean like real radical on the natural side?
Either or.
Yeah, well, I think the first answer I always have is everybody has to do what resonates with them. They do need to question whatever their decision-making criteria is, and it shouldn't be, and I'm going to go ahead and say, it shouldn't be the local drug dealer in a white coat, because that's what most doctors are. And if they don't like it, they can have a conversation, help them to evolve their practice so more patient-centric. But at the end of the day, we have an amazing amount of licensed drug dealers. That's what they do all day long. They dispense drugs. So I don't think that everybody should just trust that source. I think we all have to be a little bit more scientific and responsible at how we collect information and outcomes. But if something resonates with you, I don't care what it is, if you don't follow that, then we have enough evidence to the placebo effect and expectation outcome that if you're out of harmony with what you believe, then it's not going to go well. Like, the body's genetic response is different. If you believe, there's one study, I'll send you the link to it, and they show, it was a study where they actually put them in 3 groups, and then it was a placebo test. They're just trying to test the placebo effect, and they actually tell one group, they let them see the bottle, and they're getting a placebo, but they're made to think they're getting the actual medicine. And then they took the other group who was getting the medicine, but it actually was packaged as a placebo, and they were accidentally allowed to see it, right? And so they started comparing and contrasting the outcomes. And it was like 70% of the group that was getting a placebo but thought it was medication had equal to or greater responses in the group that was receiving medication, that knew they were receiving medication. And then those that were receiving the medication but thought they were being placebo, it only works for 30%. Their outcomes very poor. And so we start to realize that our mind and the relationship between metabolic pathways, the signaling, the communication to fight disease, like, we're all, I don't know if you've ever read Dr. Sunil Pai's book on An Inflammation Nation.
No.
Phenomenal book. We're an overload. Like, the all industrialized countries, we're exposed to so much that our body, between diet, lifestyle, stress, environmental poisons, toxins, we're overloaded. The messaging system is like on like high alert. It doesn't know what to do. Like, again, why do people respond to colies? Because we're hitting like big reset buttons. We're smashing the system and saying, hey, you're not listening, and we're throwing a new one in, hoping that it's a louder signal. And so I think that's a big part of it. I got off on it. Sure. I do this all the time, by the way.
That's what he was trying to say is we tell people you need to listen to your heart and your gut. We are not doctors. We just know what worked for us and it's worked for a lot of other people. But you have to listen to yourself. But don't be swayed just because somebody has, a degree behind their head or a plaque. listen to yourself, be your own best advocate, do your research, and decide what you want to do. Of course, there are a lot of people that do that path, and we're always here to help them no matter where they are in their journey. And so we don't encourage them either way, but we definitely say don't put blinders on and pretend that it's just going to go away by just sitting and meditating, because you definitely have to. Your body's telling you something, you have to address it, and doing nothing won't the results won't be good.
Yeah, and I do think that so like if getting extreme is to like pull up a bunch of money and go to a out of country clinic and stuff, that's cool. If that's the thing that resonates with you, but go with the expectation that's reasonable. Like most people are not going to go for 10 days and have it magically cured. You can eat 70 apricot seeds a day, but be careful about where you're putting your confidence and your faith, right? So if you're going to invest, which it really is, if you're going to invest in going out of country to a clinic, then go, with the expectation that this is a big part of your journey and not just like the end all. Like, it doesn't just start and stop. Like you're one of the few folks that has like this amazing, it feels like when we watch that your journey at that moment from that decision forward to this beautiful straight line of efficacy and benefit, and it's really powerful to watch your body heal, because that's the goal. Is always that's all we're trying to do. The cure is to get the body to know there's a problem and to do its job.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think going in with the expectation of, if that really resonates, we've been to some of the clinics, in fact all of them, because we wondered what we wanted to do when we got the Mets. We were like, oh my gosh, are we doing something wrong? Because there was, in 2014, there was a lot less information. There were very few people that were stepping into the light. Social media wasn't being utilized to empower people quite the same way that it is today. And so as we went, the thing that I saw in common was that there was a lot of love. There was a lot of kindness, that was coming from staff in some of these clinics. And I think that that's even half the battle, is that people feel very alone, especially if they pick a choice that isn't with mainstream. Then all of a sudden you feel castigated. Everyone's throwing criticisms at you, warnings because they love you, but they're throwing all this poor information at you as though it's gospel truth. And you're just clinging on to this hope inside that maybe you might be able to be that person that doesn't die from this disease, that doesn't die from the treatment from the disease, and things like that. So I think everybody should get radical, and I think radical is stop doing stupid. That's really the radical thing. It's like seriously, put down processed food, like eat whole foods. And then if you have your disease presentation is serious, you should think about being serious in your diet. And there's enough evidence that all things in moderation is propaganda. There's no, when we look at cardiology studies, that's a lie, and then, not to attack anybody, but I think it's super timely because of what's happening. But we get every day somebody asks me what I think about a ketogenic diet. And I'm like, what I think is that at the end of the day, the body needs 35 essential nutrients. You've got to get them every single day. You have to get them in a calorically appropriate platform. You have to get enough fiber. And by the time you get done with all this stuff, and it can't be inflammatory. It can't cause you to have inflammation. It can't be hard on your digestive. So there's no way that even works. But let's just look at the study that they did in 2010 with over 100,000 people. They published it in 2010. It was a 20-year study. And it had half women, half men that went on a low-carb, high-fat diet. Compared to the standard American diet, there was a 23% increase in mortality from cancer in the group by going on a high-carb, low-fat diet. But they also said, hey,
wait, you said high-carb, low-fat?
I'm sorry, low-carb, high-fat.
Okay.
So, thank you for the correction. I didn't want to get anybody on the wrong path. But if you went to a plant-based version of the same thing, so you actually said, okay, I'm going to go low-carb, high-fat, but I'll do it all plant-based, the outcomes were far better than the standard American diet. But they still aren't as good as what we see, like in Ornish's work or Esselson's work in disease reversal, when you actually go to a high-carb, low-fat, moderate protein, all plant-based diet. The healing that happens in the human body is there's like literally no competition. It's been hashed out. But they also hashed out the Mediterranean diet. They hashed out the Adventist 2 studies. And so we're looking at those things. So if you have a disease presentation, switching to not packaged foods is going to give you a benefit. And you could probably do really well. We just don't have anybody that actually reversed their cancer on camera and then came away disease-free, that used a low-carb, high fat diet. I just don't have it. So it doesn't mean that I'm anti-ketogenic. I'm just anti-bad science and anti-propaganda. But it doesn't mean I'm attacking. If that works for somebody, I'm like, and I would definitely love to meet them and understand all that they did, because all of us would like to keep bacon in our diet. All of us would like to keep the occasional burger. I don't even know what it's like, and I said that sort of jokingly, because we gave that up on June 25th of 2014. I don't even know what those other food choices are like anymore, and I have zero interest in them. And we're thriving. So you can thrive without that other food system. I don't know, maybe you could kind of like think about doing that, like on a regular basis, and keeping the body tip top. And then there's something you want to introduce it. But getting radical was the question: is should somebody do something extreme? Yeah, do something extreme. If you have unresolved, if you have serious issues with a spouse or a family member, a parent or a child, resolve those things, because holding those things, we know, has an impact on genetic expression. If you're not exercising, we're not designed to be sedentary beasts. So let's get moving. We know that there's a benefit to how our genes express when we exercise, when we manage stress, when we breathe, when we love. All those things matter. Diet is the cornerstone. But so is the gut. Like, it's the most overlooked part. I know that you and I had a conversation a couple weeks back in Orlando, and that was like, that's the thing I'm the most passionate about right now, is understanding that we accidentally worked on Kim's gut, not realizing that we worked. We'd adopted all these probiotics, and she was still having some uptake issues with some of the nutrients, and we switched, left some of the dairy base and went instead to things like sauerkraut. And 30 days later, all changing, didn't do any supplementation, all of a sudden she's responding like she's getting it from her food. The food was always the same.
Wow.
So amazing to find. And we just see that in other people, that when we start attacking the gut and addressing fungus and bacterial overgrowth, so we start seeing a pretty big response.
That's so cool. So how can people work with you guys?
Wow, great question. So Kim and I love to give information away for free. Like we're really big on empowering people. So I think in the next couple of hours we'll finally have finished and upload it at the Vita Protocol, like V as in like Victor, so Vita Life, like so thevitaprotocol.com, and you can actually get everything that we do. So what I did is I recorded a little over 1 hour. Overview of all the systems that we use, and then I'm attaching today the full slideshow as well as the protocol that we've used, and it's totally free. And there's actually a little button where you can click and you can schedule with me, and I'll do like a 45-minute share to make sure that you're customizing and individualizing. And I also want to encourage people to build their cancer team, and then there are a few people that we've worked with in a little bit more active role, and what we do in there is typical. So I'll take on a bit of a primary advocacy role, and so we'll be that voice that isn't so emotionally charged, right? When you're scared, it's hard to make decisions sometimes. Yeah. And so I think one of our favorite things to do is find out who's going to be. Do you have a good integrative doctor or a functional medicine practitioner? Do you have who in your life can be part of helping you to make smart decisions to support that? Who can take some of the weight off if you need some food prep assistance and stuff like that, and just sort of taking that on like a 30-day increments. And I'm super hell bent on this idea of evolving Western medicine. So we're just about to launch, after working with a few physicians. We just completed it up, but we're going to do a 12-week program, this is what you do day 1 to the end of 12 weeks. And so far, everyone that we ran through the program did really, really well. Again, that's all free. There's just this is what you do. This is how you get into it. And then, we do events. That's a big thing that we love to do. We brought 52 people, most of them with cancer. And we brought Chris Warwick and Dr. Sunil Pai and Maureen Sutton. And we brought a couple other doctors in and other cancer survivors. And we did 5 days on 64 acres in Costa Rica, did a little pop-up village. And we just had an amazing time. It was really organized with a lot of free time. But imagine that you got to be around somebody like Chris Warwick for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, fireside chats for 5 straight days. What would that be like?
We're going to do another one of those next year.
Yeah. And we filmed the last one. So we'll actually...
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah, we brought in 3 cameramen. So we actually got amazing high-quality footage. And so we'll finish the editing sometime in the next month or so, and we'll distribute that out so everybody can get those classes.
Oh my gosh, that is so exciting.
Huge, so much fun. So yeah, so I think that's the best. I mean, KimandCancer.com has kind of always been the go-to easy way to identify. They'll find us, and it would just sort of point that to whatever's happening. So I think it probably, if someone goes there now, I think it goes to the Vita Center. So we are committed to building a science center that would take care of 12 people at a time, 60-day stays. It's just that proposition. What happens to the human frame if before you start popular treatments, if you could pause for 60 days and do all the things that we just know are really powerful, it would be what we might consider a minimum viable protocol. And so we ran some people through proof of concept. They went really, really well, and we learned so much. And so now we want to do that as a documentary and as an ongoing center where we can introduce things like, what's the role of hyperbaric treatment or hyperthermia? Like, what would that look like? How does it compare to the previous 12 that didn't utilize that? Was there any measurable benefit? And again, small group size, but at least it's an opportunity to start being a little bit more scientific about how we approach our decisions. What do we do?
And would that be in Costa Rica?
Yeah, we think so at this point. We bought the land, so it better be.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm so excited, and I definitely am going to keep up with you guys and see how things are going. You have a ton of resources for people. That's a beautiful, wonderful thing. Do you have also the Raw Potential Kitchen, that website? And
we do. That's a funny one. It's Raw Potential Kitchen is a time capsule. So what it is it was who we were in October and November, December of 2014, and so we left it unchanged because it's like we started creating community. We thought that's how we wanted to show up in the world was, hey, we can help people and we'll create community for $9 a month, and this will be this great thing. And so all of a sudden, everybody signed up, and we loved it. And we decided we actually don't want to be in this business of writing food articles and publishing things. So we talked to everybody, and they were all happy with what their membership. They'd already felt like they got value, and we just said, well, we're just going to stop doing what we're doing because this isn't how we want to show up in cancer.
Yeah, I think it's because through the process we learned it was so much more than just food. Yeah. Food is a huge part of it, but there are so many other pillars to it. And so that's just, that's there, and we still throw recipes up on it once in a while, and we have one on Facebook and stuff like that. But the Vita protocol is pretty much.
We're big fans of transparency, so we kind of leave the time capsule up because it's hysterical to watch ourselves, and even like we were just like, food is medicine. You can cure cancer with food. It's like, okay. I mean, maybe we could change that. But I said it, so leave it up there. But it's, I think the reality is that we can work with the body to help end that imbalance and that dis-ease or that dysbiosis, and you can actually get the body to heal, and you can do it really, really fast. And it's really not rocket science. It's not new science. It's been around for a long time. It's just
it's the original medicine.
Yeah,
it is. And as it turns out, it's not expensive. It's very manageable. Unfortunately, insurance isn't going to cover it. The truth is it's really difficult to ask for when you ask for to have a blood test done for vitamin for nutrients evaluation. Your doctor doesn't even know most of them don't know how to order that. They're just like, you mean the CBC? We're like, no, I don't really need to know what the blood cell count is. I'm trying to find out what the body's doing. They're just not tools that they utilize very often. And if they do, then they know that they have to go to concierge medicine, which is, we're okay with it. I used to want to deconstruct the entire oncology system. I wanted to collapse it because we were so mad at it originally in 2014. And today I just want to love all over them and really just give them new information that maybe they could change their value system and start to look to be more collaborative. There was a study done, and Mayo Clinic did another one too as well, but the study basically showed that oncology is the least likely to actually collaborate. They actually don't do. So it's amazing when people are like, oh my, they brought in all these different specialists and stuff. It's like, that's really rare for most people's cancer journey. Their oncologist is the start and stop point, and that oncologist never worked with their primary or anybody else significant to look at a whole person treatment. They're just coming after that tumor with all they got. Cut, burn, poison, hack, slash. do it some more. Wash, rinse, repeat. That's their toolbox.
Yeah.
So we want to change that.
I love your approach, loving on the doctors. I think that's probably the most powerful way you could, you know, affect anybody's heart and mentality is love rather than hate or like aggression or, I mean, because I know personally I've had that feeling where you want to like, shove data in someone's face and say, look, like, why are you hurting people so much? Whereas that's just going to cause more problems. And just being more kind and gentle, and saying like, would you please just give this a sincere like thought and give it a chance. But yeah.
That's the idea of the documentary. The documentary was to take the journey of 12 people for 60 days and shoot them up. So in the documentary, after the proof of concept, what we came up with was to shoot them up right after their diagnosis, and they're using all the same oncologists. But we have a team of U.S.-based doctors and a team of Costa Rican doctors who are committed to keeping an eye, an overview on them while they go through 60 days, return back to their exact same oncologist for the exact same rescans, and then have that be like new information. So it's never a criticism of an existing system.
Right.
Literally just demonstrate, is there value? And let that be whatever it is. If somebody doesn't respond, what learning could we find out from that person who didn't respond? But 13 people through proof of concept, and 13 people have disease regression, and many go on to be completely disease-free. So it's like there's something there. But maybe if we packaged it like it was a new event, we wouldn't have to build a bridge between two systems. We could just create a really nice convergence point, an intersection ahead where maybe things can come together and be a little bit more whole. But I don't know, we're hopeful.
I am too, and so excited for what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. I know we've been talking for a while, and I don't want to keep you. I love this time that we've shared together. I just have one or two more questions. One about diet. Do you have any thoughts on the Gonzalez protocol and, doing different tailored diets for people?
Yeah, I think, again, I have to answer the question through the lens of what do you believe to be true? What speaks the loudest to you? So in 2015, I was asked if I would take the helm of a medical meal company, which meant that we had to put together a medical advisory team. And so I ended up spending a significant amount of time with Dr. Caldwell, and Dean Ornish, Dr. Furman, Dr. McDougall, Sean McDougall. I mean, like all of these people either lent advice or joined the team and helped us to craft a deep understanding of how the human body responds and where there's challenges when you're using food as a primary cornerstone. And so you look at, a lot of people now know that Ornish was able to demonstrate, serum level drops in prostate cancer patients, for example, with diet and lifestyle. He's convinced he was able to demonstrate to Congress that his spectrum, the Ornish spectrum diet, could reverse a myriad of chronic diseases that we once thought were incurable. Like all of these doctors. So what's the common denominator? Because they're each very specific. There's a little bit of differentiation. What we just know is that the body needs to have these nutrients in a bioavailable way, and our digestive system needs to be optimal. So, if I look at that lens, then I can tell you what a precise diet is. But if someone says, yeah, but I don't feel good when I eat that diet, and therefore it's not the diet for me, that's their position, and they've got to follow whatever feels. If it's not working for them, it's probably because they have some serious issues that need to be addressed in the gut. And that's usually why, because we actually, as an animal, we tend to eat foods that don't cause disruption. So it's sort of like we pick foods on its journey, and then we kind of load up on those. And I'm not picking on anybody or anything. I wonder on Gonzalez's side, and that's a hero in the space, right? He's an icon for Nick's work was monumental. But we know of a pancreatic stage 4 non-operable patient who's now enjoying her 16th month cancer-free, whose husband was a double PhD, who went and met with Nick and who came back, but he adopted the same position, that we obtained by working with all of those food scientists and thought leaders and published researchers in the space. And so he was able to, he declined to use a customized diet, but he did everything else that Nick had done. And so, and a couple other real potent compounds that he had found that were beneficial. So her tumors regressed. They opted for a Whipple and then did an IPT strategy and approach to her, but she's literally been cancer-free 17 months now. And so I say, well, there's all the more evidence that for me, it's like, maybe it's really, 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 really good, but maybe it's great if we just took it one click farther. But I could be wrong. I could find another year from now that I'll subscribe to that. I don't understand when you do a customized diet. What we're really talking about a lot of times is bringing in some of the stuff that's more on the animal side. And
Possibly, not always. I think Dr. Isaacs has observed that most people do need a vegetarian or nearly vegetarian diet.
Yeah.
But I mean, in some cases, maybe meat would be beneficial.
Yeah, and again, I don't when I say beneficial, I think I was saying that there's a positive outcome. Cool, but there's only so many calories on that plate, and a lot of times, I guess I should always have like what's the context. Kim and I don't usually get people who are like, oh, I just got a diagnosis and I have this like early catch. We get a lot of people that come and say, hey, I had treatment. It was successful. Then I had second cancer, and now I had treatment again, and it's not working. Like that container means that like that person, there's somebody that we just recently worked with that had stopped eating. Like, so a little bit of animal for him. While that sounds great and maybe there might be some benefit, I need to get calories and nutrients into this human frame as fast as possible. And all of the like the customization diets usually have some kind of like calorically intense but nutrient light option on the plate. And again, I'm not trying to pick anything, but like 11 cancer lines are methionine dependent. So if you have a food element that's high, like egg or chicken, it doesn't make any sense. It's like we should be restricted, but not every cancer, is dependent upon it. But most important, I would say when you want to go for customization, do an Allometrics, that's the laboratory platform. Do a food sensitivity. Find out, you'll be shocked. Somebody we work with was braggadociously consuming 1 to 2 pineapples a day. Turns out he actually has an Ig4E response to pineapple and an IgG to bromelain.
Wow.
In it. So that's an individual that should literally not eat it because it upsets the body, even though he didn't have any change in mouth, he didn't have any skin issues.
Right. He didn't, our bodies could react and we're not even aware of it.
Totally. So that's the kind of customization I get excited about. I don't really care if anybody has a food element that they really, really want to eat. Then I like Dr. Furman's attitude. He was like, hey, you know what? Fill up the plate full of greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. And if you're still hungry after that, do whatever you got to do. But do a big plate of that. And it just sort of solves the issue because he doesn't have to get into an argument or a debate. But yet, he's had really great success in type 2 diabetics. He has a first round study that was completed. They're going to second round on type 1 diabetes. And that's reversal. Which is amazing because then people are like, you can't reverse it. It's like, okay, well, a small group did, 23 men. I don't know. There might be something. So, you look at these different things that are happening in the world, and so I don't, I'm not against anything. Like I know that Garrison's been really powerful for people, and I know for some, just the proposition of having to have somebody healthy for 2 years is enough to make them just want to like retreat and recoil. So I don't. Yeah. Then we have to find a balance. Like, what do we do? How do we come up with something? And we didn't create any of this stuff. We've continued to fine tune it. We were really thankful to receive it as a gift from a PhD. But his PhD was not in molecular science or in food science or in biology. His PhD is elsewhere. And he got in psychology and that. But it left him the inquisitive and researching mind, and that's how he put together the protocol that he gave to us. It literally had no name until this year. We just started calling it the Vita Protocol, and we're like, it's forever free. Like, no one gets to own it, and anybody can adjust it and do whatever. But if you put it in a spreadsheet like I did, I analyzed what you put together, and it turns out that you're delivering at least all the minimums across the 35 essentials, and you're doing that without exceeding any of them. And I don't know very many people that would take the time to actually analyze everything that they put in their mouth during the cancer journey, but we did. And it was easy because we did a juicing protocol with snacks in between of avocado, occasional banana, and then like almonds and some nuts, mostly seeds. We didn't have any breakdowns, no sugar snacks. We didn't do any crazy things. But it meant that I could literally measure the quantity precisely that Kim consumed every single day. And so then if we made a change, we knew if that change was working. It was easier to narrow down. So 100% of the times that we shared that with people that have utilized that, those 100% of those times people have had substantial disease regression. Most of them are disease-free. The only ones that aren't are the ones who decided that they just didn't want to have a restrictive lifestyle.
Or they just got confused and they wanted to try something else, maybe down in Mexico or whatever. It didn't matter, but that's, I think, what it is. We're not dogmatic about it. We just know what worked for us and has worked for other people. And so when they say, what should I do? Should I go here? Should I just try this? I always tell them, go with your gut, go with your heart, but do some testing first to see what you're going into. And do your research. And I think that's, for Theo and I think that was the biggest thing, is we felt alone on an island. And our thing is we want tribe. And that's what we did in Costa Rica, is we brought people together so that they could get face to face with somebody and go, you have the same cancer, what are you doing? And you can compare stuff. And I think that's the biggest thing, is not being confused, just believing in what you're doing and going for it.
Yeah, I think the way that I recently learned to say it, and it was really interesting, because it was Ryan Wolf that helped me to sort of explore, because he has a great way of questioning things. So one of them is, like the largest, is that there are laws and principles that apply to us as an animal species, the human body, the human frame. There are laws and principles, but you have to have some kind of individualization. So that's where I do believe in, like, customizations or individualizations, for sure. No doubt about it. You have to meet the person at where they're at. But if we're going to say that something is a certain way, say it's that way because I believe it, or say it because I was able to see it. And when I say see it, I don't mean anecdotal. I mean, like, there's a massive body of evidence that sits in the whole foods plant-based, and it's substantial, but it hasn't been connected to cancer, because very few food studies have ever been done. Ones that have are done very poor. Shabbat did no favors when he tried to, I think he tanked Gonzalez on that study. That was unfair. It was a chance to have a really meaningful study, but the steering and the late arrivals and all that, it's just awful. But otherwise, we have to go look at this huge space. I mean, Kaiser Permanente has done a bunch of studies on the West Coast. They're phenomenal. They have 8 million patients, 25,000 practitioners, and they've published food guidelines for their patients. One, because they care, but two, because they know they can save a ton of money. As it turned out, they did a type 2 diabetes study in 2014-15, and all of the other patients and participants were on our free living cohort that was designed by Sean McDougall. And so they were well trained on what diet looked like, but they were allowed to go on their own. So 6 months to 1 year, 100% of them got off their medication, 100% of them moved down their weight scale. And so the statement that was made by one of the fellow researchers in that program was that they know that their savings were greater than $280,000 a year in cost of patient care. So, like, it's tipping, it's changing. We're seeing that. So when people want to have, like, yes, but I read this, and I really feel like that resonates, and I want to put that in my diet. We're always like, hey, cool, but don't try to rationalize by saying there's a large body of evidence. And that's where, again, ketogenics, I want new evidence to come out, and working glucose inhibition sounds brilliant, it sounds beautiful, but the problem is it's already been studied. If you want to do like a true, genuine keto diet where you're in a constant state of ketosis, or you're doing some kind of where you're doing a revolving, where you're going 3 days instead of ketosis and then 1 day carb loading. Hey, fine, do that study. But over 100,000 people were studied over 20 years, and it showed out to be a super dangerous proposition. And I don't think that most people even understand truly what a ketogenic diet is. So let's not run off and promote it, and let's not run off and adopt it and think it's the same thing. And again, I get people that want to start a fight over it. I'm like, so let me get this right. Your argument is it's working for you because your disease hasn't progressed. That's your statement to me? Like, stop with that. Isn't the statement of, like, how come it hasn't reversed? Like, why are you at 6 months with no progression and you're on a devout ketogenic diet? It doesn't, and again, I'm not trying to attack. It's really, please, people's lives hang in the balance. Can we be a little bit more responsible And if somebody has something that they think works for them and it does, then start to investigate and bring that forward and say, this worked for me, despite the fact that some evidence might have led us otherwise.
Right.
I'm open for that conversation. Like I feel like that's the new breakthrough, but unfortunately, nobody gets 100% of what we say. They seem to get like 2 or 3% or 10 or 20, and then they take some massive action.
They get as
right?
much as they can handle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that we couldn't handle it. To be honest, I think, we had a conversation about diet maybe 6 months of the year prior before Kim's diagnosis, and I really rejected a whole lot of information that was being tossed at me that ended up being totally, I mean, it was relevant. I was talking about that one test. I don't think it was a good test, but it ended up being like, oh wow, as it turns out, I would thrive if I actually didn't get dietary. My sleep apnea and narcolepsy was all related to poor health and bad diet choices. I changed the diet and all my life.
Awesome. Do you guys have any people who have gone through your program who I could reach out to, or whose stories we could find online?
Yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, I would love to. What I'll do is I'll make the introduction by email to a couple of folks. A lot of people because I'm thinking of one person in general, because I really wanted her to go on camera at TTAC, and she just wanted to get a little bit of time under her belt before since her disease, in order to feel like, because she feels really responsible to other people, and I think others do too. Yeah, we could definitely, and I think that June would probably be maybe a good one to ask it. I'll ask if she's open to it. I think a lot of people, so that you're aware too, like you maybe see it, but we see a lot of it. They're afraid. Like we get warned all the time. Are you afraid of being outspoken and getting in trouble with like the Food and Drug Administration or something? I'm like, I don't really think that the FDA knows anything about us or cares about us, but okay. But I think a lot of people have fear, and they also, I don't know if it happened to you, but it happened to us. We get like really strange hate mail and strange things about where people attack those like are misleading people. It's like, I'm sorry, you were going to mislead by telling someone that a diet can change your health. I don't really understand it. So I think a lot of people are a little bit like, you're courageous, to go out and share your story, because I don't think that it's always met with warm hugs, right?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the people that we have helped have gone on to live life. We're just the exceptions to the rules. You, me, and Theo, and the Chris and people like that. We didn't. I know for us, we didn't ever think that this would be the direction our lives would take. We thought we'd deal with cancer and then go live our life. We didn't realize that people would be coming to us and us helping them. So a lot of the people that we have helped have just gone on to live their life, but there are a lot of people who would love to tell the story. So we're in the process of doing that, actually. If you'll click on the link that shows our Costa Rica Leaders Medicine Cancer Unplugged event, all those people would be glad to talk about the ones that implemented the protocol and what they've done. And we have a lot of people that we can definitely refer.
And then also I think, so my commitment, so I wasn't going to share, but I'll share since you asked, I think it's perfect timing, is I have a commitment to take 20 people through the 12-week journey. And the deal is that I'll give of my time as long as they're willing to be transparent about their journey so that others can see. And so I think it's perfect timing to look at also what would it be like to sort through those folks. I'll bring you into the conversation. You can meet them, and let's see what happens when we take a large group of people in a sense of new community. So it'll take us probably 2 months to ramp up to the full 20, but they're all going to go through the same 12-week program of support, and they get to do whatever they want to do. That's one of the things that Kim and I are really big on. Is there's no like you have to do it this way, but this is where we can help and support. And it's really I think it'll be pretty fun and eye-opening, because that's a whole new crop of people. But let's make sure we have that conversation. I'd love to interview, see if June's ready to talk, and even another person that I think she's fun. I really we have some really great friends on the other side of this, right? You get to help people, and they come out on the other side as like lifelong friends. But I think one of them, I think we should have that conversation. Talking about.
That's cool. And that's an encouragement too. Even though people are afraid to share their stories, that means that there are so many people that we don't even know about who've probably gone on this journey and come out healthy, and we just don't know that they're there. So the numbers are even greater than we know.
Some of our favorites are the ones that we have met with, because we have met with hundreds of people. Some have taken on, and some we kind of babysat along the way, and others who've handed off the protocol and what we've done. and we don't ever hear from again. But then we'll hear through the grapevine that they're living life and doing amazing.
Yeah.
And then, people will come to us a year later or something and say, hey, by the way, I lost this much weight. I've done your protocol strictly. We're like, wow, that's amazing. We didn't have to babysit you through. We love those. We love those. That people just take the information and be their own advocate and run with it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the websites are thevitaprotocol.com.
Yep.
And what's the one with Kim in it?
Kim and Cancer.
KimandCancer.com.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you guys so much for your time. This has been awesome. I've learned a lot from you, and I can't wait to see what's in store for you guys.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to be connected. I got to go back and review your story with Chris, and I was like, it really touched. I just wanted to know that like you're reaching people, but the way that you present how you are as a person is amazing. And I think that what you're doing is really important.
Well, glory to God, it comes all from Him.
Amen.
Thank you.
Any of this that we talked about, if you want. I mean, I've always I'm a plethora of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you clearly have done your research and know a lot of awesome things.
We just get to do it on the full time. That's the thing that we feel blessed is that's just how I spend my days, is constantly researching and bringing it forward. And I get to write papers for some doctors and answer crazy. Yeah, like even Dr. Quillen's one of our heroes because he had a role in our journey. We had after the Mets, we were feeling like maybe we were making a mistake, and I got a hold of his book, Beating Cancer with Nutrition. And it just inspired us to continue to hold our journey. And so recently, Patrick had asked me what I thought about breast implants and being causal to cancer. So I think most people would just answer like, oh, this is my opinion. So I sent him like 15 studies and a huge paper that was like, I don't know, 10 pages long. And in the end, it's like my conclusion is there's 34 women that are diagnosed with cancer. 6 of them have passed away. But that's it. Out of all of the hundreds of thousands of women with breast implants. But here's the stuff show that things like a titanium hip implant or mesh, these other things, those things are like the cancer risk goes up 400, 500, 600% on some of these, and the occurrences are 6 and 7 times higher for people who have a variety of implants. So the reason I brought it up was, he writes back, he's like, wow, I was just kind of looking for like your opinion, but thank you so much. But it does. It lights us up to really look for truth. And that's really something we're galvanized to, is to not get stuck in defending propaganda or defending a brand or defending a position or it works for us, so this is the only way it can be. It's like, no, the idea is to constantly evolve what we're doing. We can do that through collaboration. We can do that by not trying to defend, but instead to seek the truth and to seek out, like, what is the new information? Which is why it's so ketogenic. I'm open. I'm not closed.
Yeah.
There's a hurdle to overcome. So how do we overcome?
Yeah. Awesome. Yay. So, thank you guys so much again, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.